Hey, it's Patricia Murphy. It's Friday, Casual Friday. This is Seattle Now. This week, the governor opened up vaccine eligibility to anyone over 16, and Amazon workers were told they're going back to their desks. In a minute, we're breaking down the week with the strangers Chase Burns and John Moe of the Depresh Mode podcast. But first, let's get you caught up. A new citizen initiative seeks to force the city's hand in addressing Seattle's homelessness crisis. The charter amendment, backed by businesses and nonprofits, would expand housing and mental health and substance abuse treatment for the city's chronically homeless population. It also would require Seattle to meet benchmarks and keep public spaces like parks, playgrounds, and sidewalks clear of encampments. The group Compassion Seattle needs to get 33,000 signatures by June to make the November ballot. The state Supreme Court says 3 of 4 charges in the recall effort against City Council member Shama Sawant can proceed. They are disregarding public health orders by letting protesters occupy City Hall during a pandemic, violating state confidentiality protections by leading a protest to the mayor's home, and using city resources to promote a tax Amazon ballot initiative. If supporters get enough signatures to make the ballot, the Seattle Times reports it could be the first vote to remove a council member in city history. And here's a sound we haven't heard in a while. That's a sellout crowd of 9,000 socially distanced Mariners fans at T-Mobile Park last night. The M's open up 2021 with a 6-game homestand to start the season. So welcome back, baseball, and traffic backups through Soto. What a week for a Friday. If you're into sunshine and great spring feelings, this was your week. But it's also April in Seattle, so don't get fooled, people. Spring in this city is full of pollen, rain, and clouds. Chase Burns is here. He's the editor of The Stranger. Chase, do you get lured by fake spring?
I do. I've started taking walks in the morning because I heard that that's good to do before work to separate your personal and your professional life. And I have been disappointed that I still have to wear long johns in now April in Seattle. That's not what I signed up for.
Right. This is the season where none of the clothes that you wear are appropriate at any time. You're either too warm, too cold. It's awful. I always have to remind myself the weather doesn't really change until June, and September is the most perfect month in Seattle. John Moe is with us as well. You might know him from the hilarious World of Depression. Well, now he's the host of a brand new podcast, Depresh Mode. John, does it matter if we get lured into fake spring because it still feels good?
It's, just live in the moment that you need to live in and call it the season you need to call it in. I lived in Seattle for many years and knew that it could be 50 degrees and overcast any day of the year. And so, call it spring, call it autumn, whatever you want. I'm in Minnesota now where spring consists, as my friend Guy Branham says, of 5 non-consecutive days in May. And then it's summer. So, yeah, definitely. Live the moment as best you can.
All right. Big vaccine news from the governor in Washington this week. Soon, anyone over 16 will be eligible to sign up for a dose. Chase, a lot of people are excited about this. I can just see it, though, turning into this general admission concert where everybody is trying to reach the stage at the same time.
Yeah, I think we will see that. But if you've been down to the big mass vaccination sites that they have down, at Lumen Field, you go there and you look around and it's everyone's just waiting for more people to show up. There are all these lines set up. There's tons of staff. They are just desperate for the supply, because they need the supply to be able to do the vaccinations, but B, the ability for people to come out and get vaccinated. So I'm excited to see these sites be used for their full potential. I do think that the later phases have felt a little arbitrary. Is it is a waiter more essential than on the ground photojournalist? Is a grocery worker more essential than a janitor? It's just these conversations have been almost hurtful for a lot of workers that have been outside working for so long. So I'm excited that we let's see it. Let's open the floodgates,
Yeah. It does seem like the state tried to prioritize groups, but as things went on, it just became more confusing, which left the situation really ripe for a lot of situations and interpretations of rules. And, people here really want this vaccine. Like, we are definitely pro-vaccine at this point in the city of Seattle. John, you're in Minnesota, like we talked about. How are things going there?
I'm between Pfizer doses. I've had one. I'm waiting on number 2. I went in there and they were playing Bohemian Rhapsody really loud in the hospital. I'm not sure why, but it lent an operatic quality to it. And yeah, everyone was really excited. I mean, it's funny to think about how right now we're talking about the availability. When can you sign up? When can you get there? Knowing that in a few weeks, it's going to be like just walk into Walgreens anywhere and you can get it, because the flood of the liquid vaccine is heading our way, hopefully straight into everyone's arms.
Yeah. At this point, supply chain issues are serious here, though, in Washington state. And this is where Jeff Duchin, the King County Public Health Officer, is deviating from the mayor's position. He thinks we shouldn't be ramping up vaccines for everyone until we have enough supply for everybody to just make it available. Chase, I wonder if this is really going to turn up the FOMO for some people, because like before, when your friend got vaccinated, you were like, oh, hooray for you. That's so great. I'll just be over here patiently waiting my turn. But now I think this is going to bring out some traits in people. Might not be the prettiest.
Yeah, I agree. I also agree with the mayor. I do think that it'll reduce confusion, which I think ultimately is helpful. But we are going to see people just sending like these mass text chains about being like, I just got a message from this list. And I'm also worried about, I've heard that when you get it, you get a sort of link that you can sign up to book your appointment. And what if someone sort of like shares that link with like 7 friends? They're like, I just got my link. And then people are going to be spreading their link. But at the end of the day, I think we just have to like cool it a little bit and be like, the point is to get shots in arms. And if we get more shots in arms, we're doing our job as a community. And, obviously we have to think about the most at-risk people first. But, if they're opening the gates, then you better run.
Isn't this just a larger scale version of what happens with Copper River salmon in Seattle every year?
Absolutely, John.
Okay.
This
All right.
is.
So take that as a rehearsal and scale up from there.
Perfect. Of course, now that vaccines are circulating, businesses are starting to think about what comes next. Last week, we talked about how Microsofties could go back to the office if they wanted to. This week, Amazon announced they're expecting employees to come back by fall. And I say expecting employees to come back because they have been told they are expected to come back. John, I am guessing there are some Amazon employees here who are pretty bummed about this news.
Yeah, well, I mean, the office is a construct based on previous technology. It's this world that you have to spend all this time going to, coming back from. I've been working out of my house for a while, and there, aside from snoring dogs that I sometimes are snoring when I'm trying to tape something, it just makes a lot more sense. Other people are in a position where they should probably be among folks. So again, I'm hoping for this re-examination and a new normal that will just take some reality factors into account, that you don't necessarily need to do things the way you've been doing them in order to do them efficiently.
Yeah, and Chase, it's interesting because Microsoft is obviously giving its employees the option of coming up with a hybrid work plan or another way to do their jobs. But if I had to come up with a company that I thought culturally speaking would do this, it would be Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon is like, you have to come back. It's interesting.
Here's a bottle to pee in.
They'll say they don't do that, but, many people say otherwise. And it was interesting in the Seattle Times article that was talking to workers who were kind of frustrated about having to go back into the office. One of them said, during this at-home work policy, I've been able to sometimes like take a hike during work or go kayaking. And I was like, wait, you've gone kayaking in the middle of
You're
work?
You're saying that?
I just... You're saying that to the Seattle Times? Like, I was blown away. That was the most Seattle techie thing I've ever heard, that someone's like, I'm not going back. But it also made me think about all these people that we talked about last year that sort of, quote unquote, fled the city to go buy homes in other areas because they were like, the future is going to be remote work. And now they're hearing from their employer, oh, actually, we want you to come back downtown in a few months. I would imagine that a lot of those people are looking around at their home they just bought and foreseeing a traffic and foreseeing a commute. And they're like, I'm going to go try to work at Microsoft or another one of these companies so I don't have to do that. So I'm curious which workers are the most upset about having to go back into the office.
Yeah, you know who's not upset? The businesses around Amazon's campus, because, of course, all those people are going to have to eat and shop, and they'll all be stress eating and angry shopping because they're back in the office. The thing that gave me pause, though, is they're not requiring employees to get vaccinated before they come back.
That's stupid. What they're doing. It's all about having a role in a civilization. If you're going to go to a place where other people are going to be, if you're going to buy into that reality, and especially if you're going to make someone's livelihood dependent upon being in that reality, play by the rules, set the rules, and don't legitimize non-vaccination as a practical choice.
Yeah, definitely think there are probably some Amazon employees searching for a new job. And of course, speaking of new jobs, John, you have a new job. You just launched a new podcast called Depresh Mode. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Well, and as a former Amazon employee myself, I should stipulate, and I don't think anybody I ever worked with wasn't always sort of looking for a new job. So I'm doing a new show called Depresh Mode. It's about depression, anxiety, panic disorders, trauma disorders, the kind of everyday psychological obstacles that people run across that don't get talked about nearly enough, but are way more common than people realize. So yeah, we're weekly. We drop every Monday. It's part of the Maximum Fun Network, and just launched with a premiere episode with Patton Oswalt that's out there right now, and really, really happy to be doing it, especially at this time when we're looking at the idea of the vaccine spreading. And something I'm really fascinated by is what elements of COVID remain after the virus itself is gone. You know, like, have you had the sensation of watching like a movie where there's a bunch of people walking around without masks on, and like maybe there's a concert going on and people are yelling, and it gives you kind of a nervous twitch, even though you know it was probably filmed way before that. It's still like, oh, don't do that. You know, that little impulse I think we're going to have for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. All right, one more story before we go. This one about an agoraphobic tech worker in Seattle who discovers evidence of a violent crime. She runs it up the chain of command at her company, but it doesn't go anywhere. Damn it. Now she has to leave her apartment to solve this thing. If that sounds like a Hollywood movie, it's because it is. It's a film called Kimmy, and it's directed by Steven Soderbergh, and it's set here in Seattle. Chase, you could be an extra on this film. There's a local casting call.
You know, I actually applied.
I knew it.
Nice.
I saw the thing and I was like, because someone else at the paper is going to write about it. So I was like, well, I'm not writing about it. I can apply. And I'm just really curious about how they're going to set up these crowd scenes. I know that the main plot is as you described, but then there's this subplot where like the Seattle City Council is deciding that they don't want homeless people to be able to freely move. So they've created this law where they can only move to certain areas, which is ridiculous because the current city council wouldn't do that. But what I'm imagining is that the activists that are sort of flooding the streets in protest of this, I'm assuming that it's going to be a sort of scene that is reminiscent of CHOP or is reminiscent of last year's protests. And so there's an inherent camp of Zoe Kravitz sort of walking outside of her Capitol Hill home and sort of fleeing sort of crowds in Cal Anderson that I'm just curious how they're going to do it.
Yeah, extras to play protesters pushing back on a city council ordinance about homelessness. If that isn't just a Seattle cliche sandwich right there.
I'm so excited for Seattle. I hope this is another iconic Seattle film because we've been holding on to singles for like 30 years. Shots in the OK Hotel, which hasn't been open since the Nisqually quake. Like, it needs a reboot. So, before that, it was Bullet with Steve McQueen. So I hope this joins the pantheon.
Yeah, totally. And of course, Seattle has always been a protest city. Maybe people will protest the movie and we'll just become a parody of ourselves.
It will implode in a meta-protest.
We can only hope.
We're going to leave it there. That's our show for this week. Thanks again to my guest, John Moe, the host of the new podcast, Depresh Mode, and Chase Burns, editor at The Stranger. Thanks, you too.
Thanks, Trish.
Thank you.
Seattle Now is produced by Claire McGrain, Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, and Jason Pagano. Matt Jorgensen does our music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you Monday.